Thanks for coming on the show, Tom. I know how busy you are. You're actually working right now.
Yep.
What is it you do for a
Yeah.
living?
I work as an accountant for one of the largest telecommunications company manufacturers.
Oh, very cool. And being in telecom, that's why you're able to work from home?
Yep.
Oh.
So, well, it's not a lot of the office has moved to virtual office. My the home office now is in Mississauga, so I wouldn't want to be doing that commute every day,
Right,
living
right,
out in
right,
Whitby.
right. Yeah, that's like close to an hour to drive?
Oh, about 2 hours. It used to be in Markham, and that was an hour.
Oh, dang. Well, it's nice living.
Yeah.
Uh, sorry, we're getting sidetracked, but this is interesting. How has working from home helped with your real estate investments? What would you think when you went to the office? Is it any different, or is it easier to be an investor if you work from home?
Oh, most definitely. Because if I have to take a call or if I have to look up something, I don't have someone looking over my shoulder. Even though if I have to work late to get my job done, I still do. But working from home, you have that little more flexibility, just in case you have to run out, see how the contractor's progressing on a renovation. I can leave and I can actually take my computer with me and
Hmm.
still be connected.
Right,
Now imagine having to do that. I wouldn't have to drive an hour to get back to home and then another
right,
half hour to get to the site. So
right,
it's a lot more flexible.
right. And I bring it up because I think that's actually really good advice for anyone who's like newer to the business or anyone who works a corporate job in an office is to um, make your way towards getting at least a day a week to work from home, and that would help your investing business. You'll be closer to your investments. You'll have more privacy um, to do your investment work, and that can even just include reading books that are help you in your business, and also cut out the commute. Um, and then you can make up the time if you need to. Because I always believe in proper ethics. Even though I may take say an hour of my 9 to 5 day out to do investing work, I will return that hour later in the day. So like say like 8 o'clock at night or something like that. So I'm not
Exactly.
so I'm not saying
The
steal
only
from your work time. I'm saying it gives you flexibility.
the only drawback I find is I don't have as much time to listen to podcasts because that's
Yeah.
what I used to when I used to drive into the office. That's when I would listen to my podcasts,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you get investing ideas.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, I don't have that time. You got to kind of find it.
Yes.
And when you're in a car for 15 minutes, it's hard to listen to a full podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing, because I know a lot of people, including my wife, who has to commute to Markham once a week. She can. I see how much she can consume on Audible, for example. She consumes way more than I do. She says, "Oh, I went through all these books," and like she'll do like 4 books for my one book because she commutes.
Exactly.
Very,
Yeah.
very cool. So Tom, I've known you for a while, and I met you back at Rain, and we were talking before we started recording. So 2015, you won Rookie of the Year at Rain. And what did you do
Yeah.
to deserve that? It was well deserved.
That well, it was a combination of buying a bunch of properties. I bought 11 properties that year, but I also helped other investors purchase properties as well, and a few of my friends get HELOCs on their homes. So it wasn't just me taking what I did personally. I helped other people grow their business and just start getting financial freedom for themselves.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome.
And that was one of the key things of Rain is showing it. Just don't take what you'd learn, but also to share it.
Yeah, to share it, grow the community, give back. Very cool. Well deserved. What kind of strategy was it for your 11 properties and where geographically?
Mostly in the Durham region.
Hmm.
The furthest I bought was Kitchener Waterloo, and one up in Lindsay, Ontario as well.
Okay, Lindsay's
So
not
it was
bad. I hear a lot of you guys are out there.
a combination of rent to owns, buy and holds, and most of my buy and holds I do a renovation. So I'll buy a single family home, renovate it into a legal two family home. So I get forced appreciation, so I can take the money back out in a form of a refi and use that money to go buy another property.
Fantastic. Have you done one recently?
Uh, I'm finishing up the last full renovation with the refi I'm actually in the middle of right now.
Hmm.
So we finished legalizing it in the summertime,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm working with CIBC right now to refinance the property.
Mm-hmm.
But with mortgage rules getting tighter, they are getting tougher to come in with the refi.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, a refi used to take a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into 6 weeks into this one right now, just to get the refi.
Is it rented already?
But oh, it's rented.
Oh, good.
It
Good.
cash flows.
Good. Good.
Upstairs, I rent out for 1650 plus a shed plus utilities. In the basement, I rent out for 1450 plus utilities. And that purchase price with everything involved with the renovation was about $450,000. So I cash flow quite nicely.
How much was the renovation?
About $55,000.
That's not bad.
No, and that's with quartz countertops, soft closing doors. I do a lot of the renovation myself.
Oh, no
I
kidding.
work at the GC. I actually love getting in there and doing the demo. So you can get your frustrations out with the sledgehammer.
I was thinking just that.
Smash everything, and then you let the crew come in and clean it all up, and they put it back together.
Awesome.
But if you can't find a contractor, you have to get the work done.
Right.
Or you're just sitting and not making any money.
Right. Well, at least you're sitting and making cash flow, even though you're waiting for your appraisal.
Oh yes, it'll still cash flow after the money's pulled back out. I still won't bring it to the point that I don't have the proper DCR to continue. You always want to protect yourself for a downturn. And with mortgage increases going up, rates going up, I always stress test all of my properties when I buy and where I think I'm going to refinance at. And I stress test the number. I put, of course, property management fees, vacancies, maintenance costs. I even put a cost on the borrowing of the down payment, which I know a lot of people don't factor in, but I do factor that in because I consider that as an opportunity cost. If I'm either using cash or I'm using a line of credit or using a joint venture money, I have to pay back their interest.
Super cool. You are an accountant, so for folks who don't understand, what is opportunity cost?
So the opportunity cost to me is if I have $100,000 in the bank, I could qualify to go buy a $500,000 mortgage property because I have to put 20% down, or I could actually lend that money out to another investor, earning anywhere between 6 to 8, maybe 10, 12%, and using a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, as the down payment, and pay 4% interest. Meanwhile, I could be lending out that money at 10%, paying 4% on the money I borrowed, so that opportunity cost is 6%. So that's $6,000 a year. That's a vacation for everybody. Once a year, vacation.
Yeah, a very nice one to
the Mediterranean. That they'll just that they don't realize that they're foregoing. And that's why a lot of times I always ask people, what do they consider their home? Is it an asset or a liability? And I'm looking at it from an accounting point of view. If you're not using your house to generate income, it's a liability. It's not an asset. But if you take out the money on a HELOC and loan that out, it becomes an asset because now you're generating income. So you use that slogan that Scotiabank always says, you're richer than you think you are. And it's true because people just don't realize how to actually use their equity in their house to make money.
Yeah. It's just the scary thing is I see people, I see people, like, for example, my neighbors, and they keep driving bigger and nicer cars, and they're installing pools in their backyard. They're not, and I don't know where the money comes from. It's not what we're doing with our investments.
You have to enjoy life, but at the same time, you got to think, hey, can I enjoy life an easier way? And you can. And a lot of people just don't realize it. And it's because it's not taught. It's not taught anywhere. I have an MBA in finance. I got my CPA. I have my undergrad in economics. None of these taught me how to generate wealth.
Other than getting a job.
Real estate taught me how to... Exactly. It taught you how to get that job, which is just over broke. And it doesn't matter. Over broke. It doesn't matter how much you make. If you make $100,000, you live a lifestyle of $100,000. You make $50,000, you live a lifestyle of $50,000. But you don't really learn how to generate the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have to go to retire,
Mm-hmm.
you you have nothing to live off of.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to change their lifestyle, but a lot of these people really have to, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're failing in the education system. And I'm actually a qualified high school teacher as well, and that's something that's not taught in school.
You're a career student for a while.
I was I was a professional student for a good 10 years.
Uh-huh.
And the funny thing is, I never intended initially to go to university.
Uh-huh.
I followed what
And then look what you did.
I followed what everybody is told by their parents. Work hard, get a job, get a good job. That worked 20 years ago. It doesn't work today.
Yeah, yeah.
Get a good job doesn't means you're protected for life. It means you got a job, and hopefully between the ages of 40 and 60, you don't get let go. Because if you are, you're never finding another job because you're either overqualified or they expect that you're going to want too much as a salary.
Mm-hmm. And then to add the real estate
Look
angle
at
to
how many.
that, for someone who's graduating today, even if they make 50,000, which I don't think many new grads do, even to make 50,000, like, can you buy a house? Can you buy a condo? Can you
No,
ever get out of the rental pool? And you're middle
definitely
class,
not.
right?
Yeah. When I graduated with my MBA, I started off making $43,000 a year at GE,
Mm-hmm.
and thought that was great money.
Yeah, yeah, it is great money.
But now, like my current job, I make six figures, but I would probably say I seem to have more disposable income 20 years ago when I was making 43,000, taking out my real estate income, of course. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'd have any more disposable income today than I did back then.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be better off back then because everybody knows real estate on average in 1900 has gone up by 8%. Your wages don't go up by 8% every year. And well, of course, there's downturns in real estate,
Mm-hmm.
but they do come back.
Mm-hmm.
Your wage will never keep up with the inflation and keep up with the housing prices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's also that, and I tell him I think you're close to my age, but when you were growing up, did both your parents work?
Yep.
No way. Both your parents.
Both my parents worked. My mom just never wanted to be a stay-at-home
Right.
mom. She taught.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that she started really working until my sister was born. I'm the youngest of three.
Mm-hmm.
I got two older sisters. And I think it was when my sister was first born that she wanted to start working a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we ever needed to have the two incomes, but we could have survived on one income because
Right.
I know that my dad worked in a manufacturing industry, sitting with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of times there was only one income coming in at times.
Mm-hmm.
Not always two of them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine today to have one person work, you're basically on the poverty line now.
Yeah. I wonder if you can make ends meet with just a single income and kids.
That's scary to me.
So now think, like, along the way, like your mom worked, but I don't know the stats, but maybe, what do you think? Maybe 2 in 10 families had double income, maybe.
If that.
So
Yeah.
if that, and then today,
Yeah.
what is it? How many households are double income? Like, probably
99%.
a lot. I think it's significantly a lot higher.
Yeah, like it's gonna have to be like, it's a lot higher than what it was.
Right.
We both know that.
And then, so basically, household income for those households, their income doubled or nearly doubled, right?
Yep.
When will we have that again, where household income can double?
I don't see that happening anytime
Right.
in the near future.
And my point goes back to, I've mentioned this before on my podcast, and you haven't. If you don't listen to my podcast, that's totally okay. That's the majority of the population.
I've listened to a few of them.
Thank you. Because I had a friend who said, all my parents bought a house, me and my wife bought a house, and then my kids will be able to buy a house on their own too, without assistance. And then I go, well, your dad was an executive, your mom didn't work. You and then my friend Mike, I'll use his name. Him and his wife are both executives making good income. Your income is double what theirs was. So that's how you made it work for you. How are your kids supposed to make it work? Right.
Exactly.
So what I actually think the future of real estate is for us is we'll see more multi-generational homes, right? Kids will stay, and it's already happening, right? Statistically, more people, more millennials are still living at home, right? And it's higher than ever, and I think it's just going to keep getting higher. So, part of the motivation I think to invest in real estate for people who aren't is if you want to get those millennials out of your home, I hope you're investing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it really should be. You should have one real estate property for each child. Mm-hmm. Is how I look at it. Mm-hmm. That way, they have their starter home. If they don't want to rent it out, but at least they have a starter home to start with.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, by the time they're ready to buy, they're never going to be able to buy, mm-hmm. or not going to be able to buy in a metropolitan area, and that's where most people are going to be working. Mm-hmm. Everybody has to understand that you have to have some kind of sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Even though I had a good paying job, I still had to commute an hour a day to get to my job. And I actually had to move 3 hours away from where I grew up. That was one thing people don't always understand. Everybody has to make some kind of sacrifice mm-hmm. in life to try to get ahead.
Right.
And even in real estate, we're making a sacrifice. We're taking our time. We're taking the risk of opening up a business because owning real estate is a business. Mm-hmm. And the biggest risk we have today is political risk. 5 years ago, nobody really thought of real estate investing had political risk. Now, that's the biggest thing that we have to combat is what will the government impose on us tomorrow?
Yeah.
Be a change in mortgage rates, mortgage qualification, changes in the
control.
RTA, the LTB, everything. Mm-hmm. It's all coming back to the government. And we have no control over that. But nobody thought about that, even saw it as a risk 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now it's our biggest risk, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that stems from affordability being a major issue for all across Canada. I believe it's a top two issue in almost every single province of Canada. And in my opinion, it's only going to get worse because our immigration numbers keep going up.
Exactly. And we're not going to be able to keep, we can never provide affordable housing. I always like to change that word. I don't really like the word affordable housing. I think we need more of affordable living. So people need to be able to take more home from their paycheck, and that might combat the affordable housing issue that we have. So if we can try to get taxes down or try to lower the cost of living somehow, mm-hmm. not just by real estate, mm-hmm. then you'd have the money to pay for hydro, food, mm-hmm. and rent. Mm-hmm. But not so much rent. Have people afford to buy homes. Like what the government did a couple of years ago by changing their mortgage qualifications to make the regular home buyer qualify the same way as a real estate investor stopped a lot of first-time home buyers from buying and became tenants. So they'll never be becoming becoming homeowners. They're going to stay as a tenant, and it's driving that demand and supply and causing a larger shortage every day because mm-hmm. people are not becoming homeowners.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think part of it also is that people's expectations have to change. Because if you look at any of the more dense cities of the world, you see that their expectations are different. And I'll give an example in St. Catharines. I had all these couples apply for my single family home and their incomes didn't qualify. And then look who did qualify. 4 young adults who are all making roughly minimum wage. Because more adults were willing to share one house versus double the number of adults were willing to share one house versus 2 adults. Right? So I think
exactly. Well,
very simply is I think more just like I mentioned earlier, more generations in one house, more people in one house. And then the rent becomes very affordable.
Yeah. When I first moved to Toronto, there was 5 of us renting a semi-detached.
Right.
I had the entire basement, but mm-hmm. that was the way that we made a go of it. Mm-hmm. And even after that, I rented a room in a house when I moved to Markham because mm-hmm. I couldn't afford a full-on apartment,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew I wanted to buy my first house,
Mm-hmm.
my house that I was going to live in.
Right.
So while that was being built, I was just renting a room
Right.
in somebody else's house.
Mm-hmm.
I was basically working crazy hours, so it was basically as if I was just renting a hotel room, but
Mm-hmm.
at a lot cheaper rate.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need a full-on apartment, but I was making a sacrifice so I could afford to buy my house.
Mm-hmm. That's actually
And
fantastic
then that,
advice for young people.
yeah, like stay at home as long as you can. Like most parents are flexible.
Mm-hmm.
I find almost most people when they turn 16, 17, 18,
Mm-hmm.
first thing they want to do is run out and move out on their own. But they don't realize the cost of living on their own
Yeah.
until they do it, and they're going, oh wow, I'm so far in debt. How am I ever going to get out of this?
Right. Well, hey,
As the parents get the kids out, they don't want to come back in.
you mentioned earlier. What? Do you remember what you were renting, paying rent for that basement?
So I think we were renting the entire house probably about $1,500 a month.
Uh huh. And what was your split?
So we just split out the rent equally. So I think I was paying $300 a month.
Right. Versus you're paying $300 a month versus you charge $1,450 plus utilities for your basement.
But at the same time, real estate was cheaper. That was 20 years ago.
I know.
I was
But
still I
that's
was
just
still
the world
paying like,
today, though. Like.
oh yeah, like right now, like I primarily invest in Oshawa.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to go and sell one of my legal two-family homes,
Mm-hmm.
the average price is $600,000.
Mm-hmm.
And owning real estate is a business, so someone buying that and going to be renting that out, they're going to have to rent it out for almost $4,000 just to try and break even.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they're going to have to rent upstairs for about $2,500 and downstairs about $1,600, $1,700,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just a break even on the mortgage. Then they still got to pay income tax that people don't realize that they got to pay, property tax, maintenance, property management, vacancy, repairs. There's a lot too being an investor. It's just not here you go and you make all this kind of money. No, there's a lot of work involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's not easy. So, Tom, there were some. We discussed these things off camera, off recording. So you've overcome some challenges, specifically your health.
Yes.
Can you? How did that play into your real estate decisions? Your decision to start investing or anything like that, or?
It actually pushed me into taking the first move.
No
I
kidding.
always liked to watch. I mean, real estate. So like, I'm a night owl. So I always saw the old infomercials of Tommy Vu,
Tom Vu, yeah.
and Charlton Sheets and Russell. I forget his last name, and they all made real estate make so easy. But of course, it was all in the U.S., which is a completely different game than in Canada. So I'm going. I always liked real estate, and when I was younger, I was always thinking about buying real estate. But I think I was about 34, and at the office, I had seizures. It was just out of the blue. I did have one rental property at that time. It was in Hamilton, but I was working in Toronto, and I had a seizure, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. So anytime you have a seizure and you're taken to the hospital, you lose your license for 6 months to a year. So during the course of a few years, they found out the right cocktail of medication, so I didn't have seizures anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'm still on that today. And then in 2011, I had a sinus tumor that broke into my brain cavity that made it look like I was having a stroke. And so I had to have an emergency surgery. I was off for 6 months. And at that time, I was 41. I'm going, you know what? I can really embrace retirement, because I always never thought I would ever stop working. I don't think I'd ever stop working in the sense that even if I retire, I'll probably do something in real estate, because I'm not one of those people that's going to just sit still lying on the beach and doing nothing. I definitely love going on vacations and lying on the beach and relaxing for 2 weeks and decompressing, but I could not imagine doing that all the time. So during that 6 months, I really said, you know what? I really have to figure out what am I going to do? Because what if another thing happens to my health and I can't rely on my income for my job? I need to start supporting the family in the long term. So during that time, I started looking into different types of real estate investments in the Oshawa area because I wanted it close to my backyard just in case I got ill. Because, as I mentioned, when I had my seizures, I would lose my license. And the properties that I had in Hamilton, I bought purposely in the seedy area of Hamilton because they were dirt cheap. My very, very first property, I put nothing down. So I had the owner take a vendor take back. I put X amount on my credit card, and then I had a bank loan. And at that time, you had to have 25% down. So all of my expenses, including property taxes, were $331 a month. And I was renting that place out for $1,350. But it was in a rough area of Hamilton. It was on Princess Street. I'm not sure if you know where Princess Street is. It's over by the steel mill.
Yeah.
So it's in a depressed area of Hamilton. I could not get any property manager to want to go down there and manage it. So because of that, I sold my Hamilton property. I had a couple of them down there. I got rid of them all because no property manager wanted to do it. So I figured if I got ill again, I wanted them in my backyard. So Oshawa is the town over from where I live.
Right.
If I ever had an issue, I could have my wife go over and take a quick look at, hey, do we have anything going on over here? And I changed my entire strategy. Is I'm not going after low income. I'm going after nice places in nice neighborhoods where I can get consistent rent and consistent tenants. So it took probably 3-4 years to find the right property. But the year that I finally found him, it was about 2014, 2015. I'm like, damn, I found my niche. And I just went little gangbusters, and I bought 11 properties in that first year. It was a combination of buy and holds and rent to owns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I also started joint venturing with people as well. Because you can't buy everything on your own.
We'll get to joint venturing, which is part of the reason why I asked you on the call. Any lessons along the way from your investing that you can share? Other than
yeah.
That was a good lesson about Hamilton. Is when you're investing, you gotta make sure. I always thought it was a good idea whenever you're looking at a property to bounce it off a property manager. Right? Yep. They're third party. They're not your agent. So again, they're third party. They're not financially invested in your decision, and they know that they'll be dealing with it. So just ask them, will you manage this property for me?
That was one of the big lessons I learned from going in Hamilton, and also learning about vendor takebacks. Mm-hmm. If you find a vendor takeback, you usually have to think twice, going, why are you willing to hold back some of this money?
Yeah.
And I find that the best people, if you are looking for vendor takebacks, is other real estate investors that are getting out of the industry and retiring, and they built up a high net worth, mm-hmm. and they can take the benefits of deferring some of that capital gains, mm-hmm. or someone that's just a little bit older, just they're tired of the game, mm-hmm. but they have equity. You got to make sure that they don't need the money, mm-hmm. and they're not just selling it because they're selling it because it's a headache property. And that's what a lot of people will do when they'll take a vendor take back if there's a lot of headaches with that property because they get it off their plate. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the big things to learn is always think twice before buying a property. Mm-hmm. Don't always just use your gut. Make sure you're working with a good team. And I've had a solid team, and I actually do have probably about 10 different real estate agents looking for me at any time for a property. And this is to keep them hungry to win my business. I will not sign a BR, a buyer's representation, until I'm willing to put an offer on a house, and I'll put it on that house only. And they all know this up front. So they know that I'm serious when I'm looking for a house or a property. Mm-hmm. If they find me a good deal, mm-hmm. they're going to get the deal. I will not ever compromise my reputation and take the deal that someone else found me and bring mm-hmm. it to another person.
Right.
The industry, it's a big industry, but it's a small community.
Right.
We all know each other or know each other by association by another person. So it's
Right.
really important to maintain your reputation
Mm-hmm.
in this industry
Mm-hmm.
with your peers. So key lessons is to have a strong team, know what you're doing, make sure that you have, and your strong team would include not just real estate agents, property managers, contractors, lawyers, mortgage brokers, because everybody will run into a money issue at some point in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why you want to make sure you have a good broker that knows exactly what you want to do,
Right.
so they can help tailor the path for you to get all the money that you need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you don't, you're going to get pigeon-toed and you're going to make the wrong decision. And I hate to say this to any bankers out there, you don't want to deal with the bank. You want to deal with your broker. The broker will bring it to the bank for you.
Mm-hmm. So Tom, to take a step back, I guess it's a, I don't know if it's the best way to say it, but my second year economics professor said there's economics to every relationship. So I want to go into the economics of your relationship with your realtors. Why are they bringing you deals? Because where the mistake is I see novices make is they'll try to do the same thing as a novice, having no track record, not even being pre-approved for financing, not even know where the down payment's coming from.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I just don't call up any real estate, broker and say, hey, go find a property for me.
Mm-hmm.
I almost every agent I've used came out of another meetup or another group that I've dealt with. So they know me and they know I'm an action taker and they know I am already pre-qualified. If I see the house, I usually will buy that house.
Right.
I hate losing a house.
Mm-hmm.
And in my first 2 years in the real estate industry, I would never go really into bidding wars, but I would usually go in with an offer strong enough to win on the first pass.
Right.
Or at worst, I had to do a secondary offer.
Right.
So
right.
if I had to go in clean, I went in clean, but that's because I already knew I would bring in a home inspector with me at times
mm-hmm.
when I was looking at properties.
Right.
So they could point out issues that I would know before, so I can go in there without having saying a home inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And I already know I already got the financing, so I can go in no financing clause.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going in there prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Education is key in
mm-hmm.
anything and any kind of negotiation. You go look for a new car. If you go into the dealership and you know exactly what you want, and if you've done your diligence, you know what the price is,
mm-hmm.
so you can actually negotiate the best price for you. And I'll use an example. When I bought my wife's car, we found out exactly what model she wanted, and I sent it out to 10 high-selling Mazda dealers, because there was a Mazda car that we were looking at, and I said, bid. That was basically my words. I said, here's the list of everything I want, now bid on it. You get to coming back to me with your best offer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And about four of them said, oh, you got to care about the service. And going, yeah, that's great. But you know what? I'll go buy it from this one over here and I'll bring it to you for my servicing because it's under warranty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going,
they don't want that.
But I end up getting a great deal on her car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that they still made profit on it, but it was a win-win situation for both parties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in some of those cases, people just need volume. That's how I understand a little bit of the car industry. But sometimes they just need volume, and that helps them. That helps them that way. But to bring it back to the real estate, though, in your relationship with your agents, is you're someone that can act quickly,
exactly,
and decisively, and you're there to win, right?
Yeah.
You're not there to lose like a lot of novices are.
No, I won't. I'll pull the trigger if I see the house. I'm pulling that trigger usually that same day.
Yeah.
Going, okay, we're putting an offer in, and a lot of times it'll be a bully offer.
Mm-hmm.
If I saw it at 11 o'clock that morning, we get the offer in by noon. I got a bully offer in saying, you got to give me a response back by 5 o'clock tonight. Because I don't want any competition, and I don't want other people to see it. That if I thought it was a great deal, or at best I would give them the next day. But they know I'm going to take action if they show me a property that I want. Right. If it meets my criteria, boom,
Right.
we'll bring an offer in.
Right. And it's not just action is the offer. The action is winning.
Yeah, I don't like to lose.
Yeah. Winning within your means. So
Yes.
I want to go joint venturing because
Okay.
like I mentioned to you. So I mentioned to you before we were recording the show is called Truth About Real Estate Investing show. You've had some less ideal things happen with your investing in the case of joint ventures. Can you share on that?
Uh, yes. A joint venture, people got to think about. They really need to realize they're in a relationship. It's almost like a marriage. So you got to be make sure that you understand who your joint venture partner
Mm-hmm,
is.
mm-hmm,
And one of my first joint venture partners, and this is when I was still in the learning phase of real estate investing, I picked someone that I would not deem has the same principles as I do and ethics as I do. So unfortunately, that this property went south, and we had a bunch of issues. The joint venture partner wasn't living up to their represent what they provided, saying they would do,
mm-hmm,
and it caused a lot of turmoil
mm-hmm.
and a lot of court cases as a result of it
Right.
because people were not paid, and I was blinded. Uh, the person had a great reputation
Great
outside
presentation.
of this, great presentation,
Right.
and I thought I did enough due diligence, and I guess this person did have a good presence among himself, could speak very well, but when we'll say shit hit the ceiling,
Mm-hmm,
he ran basically
mm-hmm.
and tried to not live up to what he was supposed to do,
Right.
and ripped off people in my eyes. I
So
actually
can you
had
detail what happened?
yeah. So it was on a rent-to-own property,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, the not all rent-to-owns go through the entire
Right.
term.
And
And
in this business relationship, you were the money and credit, or
I was a qualifier for the property, so I qualified for the mortgage,
just credit? Okay.
and and then he was supposed to bring in the money,
Mm-hmm,
the down payment,
mm-hmm.
and manage the property and provide financially quarterly reports. I never received one financially report. Yeah, but you know what? I didn't even realize that I needed them because I was so new. This, like I said, this was almost at the very beginning going that I'm like, okay, when it sounds too good, it is. And this one sounded great. Going, hey, I'm going to make all this money for just having to qualify for a property, and I have to sign a couple pieces of paper. Very naive on my end, and I did it. And unfortunately, like I said, it didn't go through the whole term, and we ended up having to sell the house. Actually, the house was destroyed. It was we had an insurance claim on there. We
How
got
was
the
it
insurance
destroyed?
money. It, there was a fire, unfortunately. Um, I was a member of Rain. I reached out to the community of Rain, and unfortunately, it, no one actually gone through this kind of experience before. And I'm like, okay, so this is new for the Rain members as well. So going through it all, got the insurance claim, got a perfect settlement, settled very quickly. But when it came to paying everybody back, the other investors and the lawyer that looked after it, it my joint venture partner decided he didn't want to pay everybody back what they were deserved. Because generally on when you're
Sorry,
doing
Tom.
it,
You had the mortgage, but you didn't receive the money. Who
I
got the
received the
money?
money.
Oh, you received the money. Okay.
The insurance money came to me,
Mm-hmm.
but like as part of the agreement was he's supposed to be looking after all the bill payments. So
Oh.
I wired him the money back to pay after the mortgage was paid off, to go and pay the lawyers, to go and pay the investor off, and then he would have his residual. Uh, he didn't like the payment due to the lawyer, so he didn't pay him back the full amount. He thought, oh, he only did a tiny bit of work. Meanwhile, I was on the phone almost every day with this lawyer for almost 3 months, and the insurance settlement was completed in record time, and we got full value of the the insurance policy. Now, the house was only going to be sold for 450,000 because we had it up for sale because the RTO failed, but the insurance company paid us the full policy as they should have, which was $600,000. So we made an extra $150,000. And in that case,
So sorry, Tom. You were asking 450 in the sale, and you received how much?
$600,000 because the house was insured for 600. Actually, if they had to if they rebuilt it, it was going to cost about 700,000 to rebuild it.
Right.
And so the insurance company did a cash settlement. So we did the cash settlement because we were going to sell the property anyways. And he started to not want to pay everybody what they would deserve. So there was an extra 150,000. We didn't go through the whole term. I didn't get paid remember at the beginning when I said I was naive and I was going to make X amount for signing a piece of paper and all that? I wasn't even paid my full amount. The person wanted to prorate it based on how many months we had the deal for. Meanwhile, in the contract, it stated I would get X amount no matter what, and I had personal guarantees from him and the person's wife that I would be paid X amount no matter what. I never received that payment. But you know what? It was such a headache. I just wanted it off my plate. I never really wanted to see that person again. And that was actually part of the reason I left Rain, because the person's a member of Rain. I didn't want to see that person and have to deal with that person ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And
even though,
the very first.
So who has the 150? Who has the extra 150,000?
The investor, the person that set up the joint venture. So my joint venture partner, in this case, he kept it all.
So even with the windfall of $150,000, they wouldn't repay you what they contractually owed you.
Yeah, and we're talking literally $12,000. A windfall, yes, it's mind-boggling. So he still would have made a substantial amount of money, even if he paid everybody back what they would do. I can't say why he didn't do it, and I don't know if it was financial difficulty. I don't want to speculate because I don't want anything else to happen. I even had to go to court over this because the person was taking him to court over it.
Who's taking him to court?
The lawyer took my joint venture partner to court for his payment.
Right. Yeah, it's good advice is to pay your lawyer. You know they're coming after you.
Yeah, no, it is standard practice. Like in real estate, you sell your house, on average, you're always going to be paying 5% real estate fees. You know that day one, inside out. In Ontario, the standard rate is 5%. Mm-hmm. Now, for a lawyer to settle an insurance claim, the standard rate is 10%. It's known right across the board. Yeah. It's always 10%.
It's not like the cash isn't there.
So he did not have a proper documentation of a contract. So he thought he could pay the lawyer. Now, remember the settlement was $600,000, so the bill should have been $60,000. He didn't want to pay $60,000. He thought his lawyers could have done it cheaper. So that's what he wanted to settle it on. I'm like, I thought he would do the right thing when I sent him back the money. I sent him a check for basically $300,000. Because after the insurance claim, so you got to think, it wasn't just that was an extra $150,000. That's on top of the profit that was already in the deal. Mm-hmm. So that was that $150 bonus money, not just the net profit. That was bonus profit.
Do you remember what the property was purchased for?
Yeah, we bought it for $400,000.
Oh, okay.
And we only had the property for a year. And we were it was supposed to be a 3-year term. And we were trying to sell it for $450 at the time just before the fire. unfortunately, we had the fire happen and the house was destroyed. But then we still got $600,000. We were only supposed to get about $450,000 at the end of 3 years from the
Mm-hmm.
RTO agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So all the profits were brought forward, the mortgage was paid off, and an extra $150,000. So, and everybody knows economics. A dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. So all the profits brought 2 years forward, it's worth a lot more than what it would have been 2 years ago and 2 years down the road. And it's mind-boggling that he did not want to pay everybody, and he's still fighting stuff about it right now. So when you're looking at a joint venture partner, don't ask what they're like on a good day. Ask them what they're like on a bad day, or ask people what you know about them on their bad day.
Yeah.
Because that's really who you're going to be involved with. And thank God that was only going to be a 3-year RTO agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And, prior to that, I actually did a couple smaller deals with the person. And in general, it panned out. Another one didn't pan out, but I didn't find out that wasn't supposed to pan out until another year into this one. So really, I didn't get ripped off one time. I got ripped off twice by this person. But he had 2 other smaller ones that we did, and they worked perfectly fine. On the larger ones, they didn't work out fine. So I don't know what happened in his life, or I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to speculate, but it's not always rosy.
No, it's not always rosy being an investor.
I didn't lose any money on the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I lost a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
If you factor in the time that I had to spend
and grief,
I probably lost more than I made. But it's a huge eye opener,
mm-hmm.
and I always will vet everybody more diligently. I honestly, now when I do my joint ventures, I take control because I know I'm going to be ethical. I'm a CPA. If I'm not ethical, I could lose my accounting license.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do everything by the book.
Mm.
And there is too much, we mentioned before the call, your reputation is everything in this game.
Mm-hmm.
It gets around so quick.
Yeah.
And you know what? And we're all here really to help each other, not to screw each other over.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And after what happened to me, I found out this person has done similar things to other people as well in different degrees. And
How many people?
Woo. I've probably heard of at least 4 or 5 different ones that he's done similar, but not to the same degree.
Right.
He's actually quite successful in the industry, but eventually everything will come to light, and maybe his success will be his downfall as well.
Right.
Maybe sometimes when you go too fast, you don't look at everything to the detail that you should.
Right.
And there's very popular examples of that we studied when I did my MBA. A common one was it was a party boat company called Three Boys. They grew so fast they didn't maintain their cash flow, and within 5 years of being one of the top growing companies in Canada, they were bankrupt. But yeah, so it's one thing to grow fast, but you got to make sure that you pay attention to everything and make sure you've done your due diligence. And now that I've gone through that, I do even more due diligence when I look at bringing on a joint venture partner. Mm-hmm. Technically, we're not supposed to use that word partner because partner from a CRA point of view is different. It's really a joint venture co-agreement because a partnership is different than a joint venture.
Okay.
For accounting wise, for taxation. But everybody commonly says it. Even you go to any real estate meeting, it's joint venture partner. But when you talk to a CRA agent, it's not a partner. It's just a joint venture co-agreement. That's it.
Co-agreement. Okay. Joint venture co-agreement. I think it's the first time we've discussed it on this podcast. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Oh, boy. Yeah,
Yeah, so
because
like
I know the individual. Anyone who doesn't know, I know the individual that Tom is talking about, and it's actually funny because when people were vetting his deals to me, I told him to walk away. Right.
but it's a big eye opener. But in one way, nothing's wrong in real estate in the sense everything that's gone bad, it's a learning experience, and just take it and learn from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that applies to even when you're screening our tenants.
Yeah.
You can screen your tenants through the yin yang,
Yeah.
and a professional tenant still can get through.
Yeah.
But you just know that you
Yeah.
have to improve on your screening the next time. So
Yeah.
take every downturn as a learning experience. So turn a bad experience into a good one somehow. And that's what I've done. I moved on,
Mm-hmm.
and I've still been successful, and I still continue expect to be successful in my real estate investing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's why I'm looking to Airbnb my next, like my currently vacant investment property, because that'd be very
Hey,
difficult for a professional tenant to get in there.
the truth is, that's my next investment. I'm looking at how I either can do a short-term rental or do an Airbnb,
Mm-hmm.
just because what I mentioned before about political issues,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a risk. We don't know what's going on. So more and more landlords are turning into the short-term rental and the Airbnb because unfortunately the long-term rental is getting a little scary right at the moment. And we got to ride it out to see what happens in the
Mm-hmm.
next year or two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, even the existing laws, even the laws 5 years ago for Residential Tenancy Act are just awful.
They're awful, but now there's actually a website out there, and they're teaching tenants how to be bad tenants.
Lovely.
And it's just getting nasty, and I see it getting nastier every day. Like, yes, there's going to be some horror stories of tenant not paying and tenant doing some damage, but in general, that's a small percentage of what happens out there. And if you concentrate just on that, the negativity, you're never going to make it in the real estate industry because that percentage is so low. But you getting one of those bad tenants at the beginning of your phase, it could destroy your whole um, business model.
Yeah, it could break your
So,
spirit.
like I've had not a bad tenant. I've kicked out a couple tenants,
Mm-hmm.
but they were actually tenants I inherited when I bought the properties. Um, so now, generally, if I buy a property, I always want vacant possession. I want to screen my own tenants, and I offer a lot to my tenants in the sense that I want nice places and nice areas. So I put in usually quartz countertops. I don't put in laminate, and it's the reason I don't put in laminate because I don't want to have to go and replace it in 10 years. So the quartz might cost me an extra 30% today, but when I factor in my value, my time, and
Mm-hmm.
having to go fix it again down the road,
Mm-hmm.
it's more expensive.
Yep. Yep.
And generally, I'll buy new appliances when I renovate, and I'll buy them, and I'll get a 5-year warranty on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could go buy a stove for $150, or I can go buy my brand new stove for $600 with a 5-year warranty.
Right.
So if it ever breaks, I just call up the warranty company, and they go in. So go buy one off Kijiji for $150. Okay, great. Now I got to go pick it up, deliver it, and if it breaks in another 2 years, I got to go find another one off Kijiji or Craigslist or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
buy it and bring it over. That my time when I'm looking at stuff like that, I value my time between $250 to $500 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 hour to me, it just costs me more money.
Right.
It's not like I charge a client $250 or $500 an hour, but time is money.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm. We do the same thing. We buy new. We don't bother with used. And our market's calling for a lot of stainless steel, so everything we're replacing is stainless steel.
Yeah, I get all stainless steel. I buy them all from the same place. So I get an additional 10% off the discounted price already. So for me to go buy a new stove right now, I'll usually spend about $600, and that will be a glass top, 5 burners, and it's a nice looking stainless steel.
Mm-hmm.
I pay $75 for the delivery, and I got a 5-year warranty on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like putting dishwashers in my places too,
Hmm.
because I don't want the dishes sitting up on a countertop. It's not so bad because I got quartz, but if you got the laminate countertops and if you don't have a dishwasher
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
it's just you're looking for potential issues down the
yeah,
road.
yeah. Pests. Hmm.
And I get better rents this way too.
Hmm.
And I'll spend an extra $150 on soft closing hinges on my cabinets because I look at the wear and tear and the so it doesn't bother the other tenant because all of my places are legal two-family homes. So instead of having someone slamming the cabinets, you can't slam them, so you're not going to disturb the other tenant.
It's a good idea. I made a note
Yeah,
of that. I have a kitchen
you
rental
know, like
coming up.
the best place to go get it,
Where?
and it's not for Affordable Kitchen. They're in Scarborough.
I think I've heard of them. They're popular, especially in our
They
community.
they're it, it's a solid cabinet, so like even the back is solid wood, like solid MDF. It's not just a piece of cardboard at the back. They're nothing fancy,
Hmm.
but they're great. They're durable. They're solid.
Hmm.
Uh, so, soft closing hinges are next to nothing.
And they deliver?
They'll deliver.
Nice.
A recommendation though, pick them up and have your own installer do it because it's a lot cheaper.
Really?
Like a kitchen will cost me say $2,000 for all the cabinets. If I have them deliver and install, it's another $1,500. But I could have my installer, my guy, he'll go pick them up, install them for 700. So I save myself $800.
It's good math.
So like that money goes towards the countertop. And if you're using a quartz countertop, uh, when they cut out the sink, I ask them to polish that and give it back to me because I give it to the tenants for a cutting board.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So and they don't charge you anything more for it.
Nice, nice. Oh, that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
So it's that way they can cut like even though they're cutting on a quartz, they're not going to scratch it. But now they got a cutting board as well,
Hmm.
or now they got a place to put the hot pot instead of putting the hot pot straight on the quartz.
Yeah, because it
They're
could
putting on a
break.
quartz cutting board. It could.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, but it could. But yeah.
Oh, my wife's broke ours. Not
No
her
way.
fault. She put a hot pot on our quartz countertop. Corian. Ours is Corian. Sorry.
And that's why. Yeah, quartz is not supposed to crack on heat.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah.
Corion's even more expensive though.
Yeah, it's hospitals use it, right? Because it's antibacterial or easy, perfect surface to clean, whatever the term
Yeah.
is for that.
Yeah, that's
Right.
why I don't like granite. Granite is
Porous.
porous,
Yeah,
and then you got to seal it, and it will crack with a hot plot
yeah.
and chip. So yeah, no, for the extra dollar a square foot or whatever, go with the quartz.
Go with quartz. Quartz is in right now too. You see it in almost every condo, every new condo.
Oh yeah. Well, they got to they got to make it look luxurious in the
Mhm.
condos
Mhm.
because, and I know tenants are complaining about all the condos are not are being luxury condos. Land is expensive, and development is expensive.
Mhm.
And the developers have to make the money back and make some profit. Otherwise, they're not going to actually build.
Mhm.
Like no one's going to build for free.
Yeah. And
Like,
it's only getting more expensive. Material costs are only going up, and development costs are only going up.
Yeah. I was looking at a property the other day, and the guy bought a house, and he severed the lot, and he basically kept just a shell of the one home, and he made it into a 2-unit home. The development cost for that, even though he kept the shell, was $55,000 in Oshawa.
It's cheap.
So, but if you asked to have it called a duplex, it was $15,000 more. So you got to think $70,000. And this is not in like a prime location of Oshawa. So this is an area of the home should only be about 400,000, 450,000. Because of all of these extra costs to him, he was trying to sell it for $650,000.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's all that cost is going to get passed back onto the tenants, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So that's where the government has to look at. Hey, where they can try and make it a little bit more affordable is if they reduce some of these costs,
Mhm.
people could maybe buy it at a little bit lower price point. Then you can rent it at a lower price point.
Right.
But
Yeah. In my markets, reducing our costs can just be just to enforce building code versus we have
Yeah,
challenges with our inspectors who don't know building code, so they make stuff up and they make our lives more difficult. So we're not saying like give us discounts or anything like that. Just train your staff on what the rules are so that when we deliver on the rules that we get our properties approved.
yeah. We have the same issue out in my area. If I get one inspector and a different one come through,
Yeah,
I get two different answers.
yeah.
I actually asked the city the one time, could they actually give me a checklist of exactly what I need,
Yeah,
or can we have a sit down and
yeah,
go through it?
yeah,
The answer was no. But why?
yeah.
You should be consistent.
Yeah, Ontario
Like,
Building Code. It's already there.
yeah,
You don't have to make it up.
I either be stringent on the code and tell us it's going to be exactly that, or tell us it's not that, and let us all know.
Yeah.
To me, I think every home should be allowed to have a secondary suite if you can do it in a safe manner.
Mm-hmm.
And but they don't like the one of the codes in Oshawa, you have to have 6'5" every to every exit. Some of the house could be under 6'5", but if it's not a passage, that's fine. So why is 6'5" the right number and not 6'4", 6'2"?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not everybody is 6'5". So I'd go with what's the average height of an average Canadian. Why are we using that as the height code?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's arbitrary numbers that they keep picking.
Right.
And I don't know if you have the same kind of code for window sizes. Like you gotta have so much natural sunlight.
Oh, we're only enforced on Ontario Building Code for windows. We've actually been fine there. Where it gets a little funky is in St. Catharines, for example. They limit us to just over 600 square feet. You cannot build a basement apartment over like 620 square feet.
And people are complaining that they don't want to live in these small places.
Yeah, people want
So
big spaces.
why
are they limiting us?
like what if the basement is 1,000 square feet? Why can't you have 1,000 square foot basement? I had the same thing when Peterborough was going through their code to make a legal 2-unit suites. They're not allowed to have 3 bedrooms. Does it matter? Say upstairs is 800 square feet, and for some reason your basement is 1,400 square feet, which is not common, but I've seen some properties where the basement's bigger than the upstairs. You should still only have a 2-bedroom basement apartment. I'm going, but you got room for 3 bedrooms. Like, I personally don't like having a 3-bedroom basement. I like this having the 3+2, because if you got a 3+3, I find you start getting overcrowded, and you can still have overcrowded with 3+2. But I just find if I got another third bedroom in the basement, it's overcrowding the house.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting too much pressure on the water system, the heating system. Parking is another big issue because, as we mentioned at the beginning, it made more sense for 4 adults or 4 students to rent your place versus a family of 2, because they're willing to split the cost and willing to have a little bit less space.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to get 4 people willing to share 600 square feet? That's the size of our condo that we have in Toronto is 600 square feet, and that's a 1-bedroom. And I find when I go and look at it, it's small. I can't imagine saying that's a 2-bedroom place. But they're going to make it into a 2-bedroom because you need the rent to offset the cost of buying the house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Crazy. All right, Tom, I've taken enough of your time. So normally I ask people what advice they have for new investors. So actually, because of your story, I want to ask, what advice do you have for investors who've gone through significant challenges? Like you had to overcome cancer, and you had to overcome a very poor co-applicant. What was it?
It's a joint venture, but you're just not supposed to say the word partner. That's all.
Joint venture. What was it? What?
You could call it a co-agreement, or like or agreement. It should be an agreement. You're not supposed to say you're in a joint venture partnership, because partnership is recorded differently. Just ask your wife when you're later on when she gets home tonight. She'll tell you the same thing. Uh, Keep a positive attitude. You know what? There is going to be hiccups in the real estate game, just like in life, but have the positive attitude.
Right.
Any roadblock you come into, take that as a learning experience and improve upon it so you don't do it again. You might do it a second time, but the less chances are. Just take anything that you ran into, learn from it, and continue with it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get discouraged, because you know what? This is probably the best and easiest method to try and get ahead in life is through real estate. And I would still say for a new person, the best thing to do is learn a tiny bit, as much as you can, but to partner with someone at the beginning. I just find you can learn from their mistakes so you don't repeat them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing I've always tell to, and when I speak to any new investor,
Right.
and they say, "What do you recommend?" I'm like, learn a tiny bit,
mm-hmm.
but then partner with someone. And it's kind of like taking a mentor. Like I always say, you should have a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
so someone keeps you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So by being a joint venture partner, you're having accountability. So because that person's going to teach you some stuff, and they're going to expect you to do some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just be the silent money partner at first. Do that down the road if you want to. But at the beginning, get your hands in there, learn as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Don't always hire the contractors right away. Be willing to learn some of it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That way you know if your contractor's ripping you off.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or if they do a poor job. Or if they're doing it wrong.
I've caught a lot of contractors doing it incorrectly. And if you don't know it's incorrect, how the contractor is going to get away with it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's
actually really good advice, Tom, because I find a lot of novices, they're trying to do everything on the cheap or on the free, and no one's going to teach you how to do this for free.
No, and spend the money. Like I see so many people, if they're doing a renovation, they want to do everything, buy all the cheapest materials. Hey, don't buy necessarily the cheapest materials. Find when they're on sale. If you go buy cheap paint, you're going to have to do 3 coats. When if you buy paint that's really good, you might get away with a primer and 1 coat. So it's actually less labor cost. So you've actually saved yourself money, and you got a better quality product on your wall.
My arch nemesis is the cheap toilet that always gets plugged. Because plumbers ain't cheap. Plumbing service calls are not cheap.
Oh yeah, no. Even like today, one of our stoves is not working, and my partner asked, "Should we call in a repairman?" I'm going, "No, we've had this issue a couple of times. This is the original stove with the house." I said, "Let's go buy a new stove. It's going to cost us less." I had a repairman come look at a washer the other day. It cost $600 to fix. The labor was $300. This was an old washer that we inherited. So it was one. It was in the condo. It's one of those one-piece washer dryers. So I hate them, because if the washer goes, the dryer goes. You have to get rid of both. So I always tell people, don't ever buy them. Buy the stackables that you can stack on top of each other, because it costs the same. Well, it might cost you an extra $200, but you got to think the washer goes. And now you got to go buy one of those one-piece ones. They're $1,500. You go buy these 2-piece ones, you're going to cost you $1,000.
I think I just bought
and you buy the stacking kit.
Should talk to you first, and for listeners' benefit, there's that saying, only a fool learns from their own mistakes. A smart person learns from other people's mistakes. So you guys all go out there and learn from my foolishness and buy those stackables rather than the combo washer dryers.
No, actually, but if you can only fit in a combo, because you only have a 24-inch, to go try buy a 24-inch washer dryer, they're really expensive. But and it's even hard to find a 24-inch combo now, but you still can. Whirlpool makes it one. But if you have the room for a 27-inch washer dryer, I'd definitely go buy the front end loader washer and front end loader dryer and stack them.
Awesome. All right, Tom.
And
Oh, well,
if you
sorry, go ahead.
if you if you have to put them in a closet, uh, put cable, coax cable behind it, so you can use that as a string to pull it back out.
Sorry, can you explain that?
So when you're having to put a washer and dryer into a closet, you usually have very limited room to get your hands around it to pull it back out. But if you get coax cable and you make a loop around the back of the washer
Oh,
and you have handles on the front
yeah, yeah.
of it, just tie a loop in there. So if you ever have to pull it out, it's actually very easy to pull out, especially if you put coasters on the bottom of the feet.
Mm-hmm.
It'll slide out extremely easy. So one person can pull out a washer dryer on their own, and you can then push it right back in.
I'm Googling. Is that where'd you find this idea?
Actually, I've learned it from one of my persons that I joint ventured with.
Hmm.
He had it done, and I'm like, damn, I'm going to do this all the time. So that's one thing I learned from someone else. I'm like, and I've implemented it.
Very nice.
And coax cable is extremely durable. I've never seen it break in my life.
I'm gonna try to find a Google so I can give everyone a link to see what Tom's talking about. Because I understand what you're talking about. I'm just worried, concerned my listeners don't. And if you guys are lucky, it'll show up in the show notes on truthaboutrealestateinvesting.com and maybe .ca. I always forget. Tom, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
You've worked so hard to earn what you've gotten, and then it's always a sad thing to hear when like good people and hard workers get the short end of the stick sometimes. But it looks like you're pushing right through anyways.
Oh yeah, that's in the past. I've just gone forward with it. It's onward and upward. That's all I look at, and I keep pushing to find the next deal. And when I find the next deal, I'll find another joint venture partner to come on it, and always looking to grow the portfolio and going into new markets.
Awesome. Tom, for anyone who wants to follow up with you, how should they best connect with you?
The easiest way to get me is my email is tomsullivan55@gmail.com. Email is usually the best way to get me. I'm connected all the time. My cell phone doesn't leave my hip.
Excellent. I have your email address. So again, I'll share that in the show notes on the website. Tom, thank you again. Excellent. And I'll see you at the next event we're both at, which I'm sure will be soon.
Okay.
Thanks again, Tom.
I'll see you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye now.